Hello everybody, it's Tommy and welcome back to another speed build for the Disney save. Today, we are back in Forgotten Hollow working on the lot that is right next to the Haunted Mansion, and today's build is absolutely brand new. As you guys know, I've been working on doing a little bit of a mini world renovation for Forgotten Hollow while we changed some things in the build up to Ravenwood, and that included moving some characters, which I did kind of talk about in the Vampirina video, but one of the big households that I was very excited to split up and move and change was going to be Bald Mountain and all of the characters that lived in that castle. That home is called Bald Mountain, but it has so many different characters from different films. It has Horn King, it had Chernobog, it had Hades and Pain and Panic, and I really want to break up the cross-movie residentials. Those are something that were kind of like of the time of me making the Disney save. It made more sense when I was doing it, but now we have so much space and it just wouldn't be my personal favorite decision to continue to have those kinds of households exist. So I decided we would get rid of Bald Mountain, which was previously on this lot. It's not being completely gotten rid of because Chernobog is actually staying in this world and he's getting a brand new house that's going at the very top of the hill, and that will be called from this point forward Bald Mountain. And then the actual castle that I built was Horn King's castle, and that's getting moved to Ravenwood. I will be updating it quite a bit. I'm taking Hades and Pain and Panic out of it. Those are all plans and things to come. But just so you guys kind of are on the same page as me, this is a brand new build today, and it actually pairs over with the lot right next door on the left, the Haunted Mansion. I really struggled with what to put here because I think that, like I mentioned, I really wanted to go back into Forgotten Hollow and do more with vampires. And I definitely am doing that between the Vampirina household and all of the characters there, and fixing Chernobog's household and potentially adding some things there as well. And I'm going to be doing a couple of little like towny vampire characters just to add in that may not necessarily have anything to do with like the movies that are here. But while we're already on the topic of vampires, I'll throw a few more into the save file just so that we have a more even spread of vampires overall. But I think because I was like already in the mindset of vampires and I was looking at this lot, I really wanted to work this in to be like some kind of a vampire themed idea. And there were some really great ones that were brought to me. But at the end of the day, the issue became that it wasn't really Disney themed. It was more just vampires themed. And I tried to go through Vampirina and see if I could find anything from the show to maybe put over here as a commercial space or something like that. But I didn't like any of the ideas. And like I mentioned in Vampirina, that show is really not going to be like, it's not going to be a super popular thing for the save file, and it's not something I want to focus and spend a lot of time on. And I don't want to really sink into doing too many Disney Channel, Disney Junior type things for the save file. So to do another lot that was Vampirina themed, I wasn't exactly keen on that either. So I thought more about the other lots that I am keeping in this world, like the Haunted Mansion. The residential Haunted Mansion is staying, and then the Haunted Mansion across the street from this one that is based on the Disney World version that I actually call House of Villains because the inside was rethemed to be like villains theming. Those are both staying here in this world with a bunch of renovations done to them. So since the vampires thing and the vampires theming as far as Disney goes was a little bit tough to come up with something that made sense, it does make sense to actually just lean more into Haunted Mansion things. And I thought about the Haunted Mansion ride and how at the very end you end up outside of the mansion in some kind of a little graveyard or garden that's attached to the mansion, and the ghosts are all having like a little party outside. And that is such a like iconic part of the ride. It's my personal favorite. It's probably a lot of your personal favorites as well. And if you've ever been on any of the other Haunted Mansions that are themed a little bit differently, like Phantom Manor in Disneyland Paris, that's really where you can see that the different theming comes into play, because that graveyard is themed like so differently in terms of decor and what kinds of ghosts are there and some of the music that they're playing and things like that. So it's kind of like the most iconic part of the entire ride, and I felt like extending the Haunted Mansion to be these two-part lots, similar to how I did the palace for Aladdin and the menagerie. They're sitting right across from one another and they are sort of like extensions of the same build. I felt like ultimately that was a really great use of space. It also allows me to add a graveyard to this world. Cemetery is the official lot type they use in The Sims 4. And I did recently just build one of these, but this is actually only my second in the save file, and I don't see it coming up again for a little while. I'm not adding one into Hemford on Bagley. I believe I am doing one in Ravenwood because the world obviously kind of needs it, but we will not do like cemeteries all the time. The only reason that they've been coming up sort of recently is because it's been added in with Life and Death, and so I'm kind of like retroactively going back and fixing some worlds that should have originally had them. Something I've been kind of joking about behind the scenes is that if this world is filled with vampires and there's all these vampire characters living here, it does make sense that the only other characters that would willingly live in Forgotten Hollow would be ghost characters, because at least in my headcanon, I don't think vampires should be able to use ghosts to get their needs fulfilled, but I don't actually know if that's true. Somebody let me know. I've never tried to bite a ghost sim, I don't believe. I'll definitely have to check it out myself. But I just think for like the headcanon of it all, it would be really, really hard for anybody to willingly want to live in this world as soon as you figure out kind of the dynamics of what's going on here. So to have the only other occupants be ghosts does make a lot of sense in my head. And then half theming the world based on vampires and half theming it based on ghosts also kind of makes sense. And I know so many of you, and again, like I have already had this mindset. I went through this already. Why not move the Haunted Mansion stuff and the ghost stuff to Ravenwood? But there is basically like a section of Ravenwood that is for the ghosts, right? And that section, I'm doing something else with it. It looks very specific, and I'm very excited about like what I'm putting there and what I want to do over there. I'm going to be taking that neighborhood and theming it all based on one franchise, and it's not anything related to ghosts, but it is going to make sense when it gets put there. There's a certain like color coding and ambiance and a look of it all, and it's a little bit more, I would say, of a popular Disney franchise that needed like a dedicated space that also would fit in that like ethereal, ghostly kind of, I don't know, mystical, magical. It needed to go somewhere that only very specific worlds in The Sims 4 would allow. Like, for example, Nightmare Before Christmas. Nightmare Before Christmas has this very specific look to everything, and that's one of the reasons why I loved the idea of taking Moonwood Mill and making the whole thing Nightmare Before Christmas, because it's not a ton of theming. Like, I can only come up with maybe a handful of ideas, and that world was not a large world, so it could have easily been filled by one or two movies on its own. But the world has such a specific, gloomy, dark, and also mystical look to it that it helps to put one of those movies that also fits with that in that location, if that makes sense. So basically, I am going to be doing ghost things over there. There is going to be some cemetery stuff, some things relating to ghosts, because obviously I want to have the proper theming in Ravenwood. But Haunted Mansion is staying here, and I really like it here, and I really like how the world is turning out. One of the reasons that there has been such a gap in videos recently is because in the background of me posting new content, I have been doing work on older content. So the Haunted Mansion next door got an absolutely massive renovation, and I think I told you guys a few videos ago that I wasn't sure if I was going to do a master renovation video for this world because it's so small, but I ultimately decided that I am. I have so much footage from redoing the Haunted Mansion. I have a ton of footage from redoing House of Villains, and I've also updated a lot of my ghost characters, all of the characters that live in the residential, and then some of the towny ghost characters, the hitchhiking ghosts. They all received updates and makeovers and some likeness changes, so I'm going to be putting all of that footage together into a master renovation video similar to the one that I did for Willow Creek, and I'll be posting that kind of at the end of the world before we do the new tour. But I just love how everything is turning out. It looks so much more aesthetically correct, and I think you guys are going to like the end result a lot better than what I originally did. Now, as far as details in today's build, this was definitely a tougher build because it's not like a clear one-to-one reference for me to go off of. When you ride the Haunted Mansion and you enter this section of the graveyard, first of all, you enter backwards, and obviously that's intentional. They're trying to like sway your point of view a little bit, but you also, there is so much going on in the scene that it's hard to catch all of the details, and I feel like every single time I ride the Haunted Mansion, I see something new that I don't remember being there before. But there are a few things that are sort of iconic and things that I wanted to make sure were included somewhere in the build. So things such as at the very end of the ride, before you leave the queue, you end up in a wall of mirrors, and then the phantoms and the ghosts kind of like appear behind you, and that's also where your photo is taken. So I thought that it would be really cool to have a section somewhere that is more just like seating for the cemetery, but it has like tons of creepy mirrors hanging all over the broken walls and things. Also, when you enter and exit the ride, you do go through an archway, and that archway is either attached to the mansion itself or it is like the archway of entering and exiting the garden. So I was able to find some really great references of that and kind of recreate it as the entry and exit points for the build today. I did watch a lot lot of ride POVs just to kind of jog my memory, but I personally have been on the Haunted Mansion many times. Not the Disneyland version though. So I made sure to watch POV versions of the Disneyland version and kind of like compare them between the Disney World version also. And I will say I don't notice like a ton of differences. There are some little differences in like decor and things like that, but they are meant to be sort of clones of one another, whereas the Phantom Manor is completely different, and there's another one in one of the Asian parks that is completely different. The theming of ravens definitely comes up. There was also a specific tree that had some owls hanging in it, and I made sure to put both of those in as nods. When you first enter the graveyard, there is a raven that kind of greets you. So I have one of the little ravens on the staff at the entry point of the cemetery here. That's one of the newer items with life and death. So that one is tucked over there in the beginning. I also think I put a couple of like little raven statues around the build. And something that I thought was kind of important, at least in my mind, is that the ghosts seem like they're having so much fun. They're singing, they're dancing. A lot of them are making a bit of a mess. They're coming out of the ground and like digging themselves out of their gravestones. There's dirt everywhere. There's shovels everywhere. They're completely trashing this cemetery. It's not in good shape. A lot of the walls are broken. It looks like it's not being kept up with at all, which makes sense because the mansion in that respect is also kind of in similar disarray. So I didn't do that everywhere because I felt like it would be a little bit too much for the eye, but there are certain sections of the cemetery, especially in the beginning where I was decorating, that the ghosts are actively like digging themselves out, and there's dirt piles and it's messy. And one of the ways that I depicted that is, luckily we have all the little gnome statues in game, and one of them is ghost-like and clear. So if you can change the colors on that, you can kind of make it look like it's not the same one over and over again. And I didn't want to include them all over the build. I didn't feel like that was going to look very nice, but in that corner tucked away in the back right, they are actively having a party and throwing dirt all over the place. And I even included some of the little hands from the paranormal stuff pack. There are these hands of like phantom hands that are coming out of the ground. They're really creepy and they glow. So to give that idea again that they are actively digging themselves out of their graves, I put a few of those in the piles of dirt. I also used a little bit of tool to like move some of the coffins around and have them be tilted and have them be on their side, just so that it looked rather messy. And then the rest of the cemetery, there are phantoms, those little gnome phantoms around, but they're hiding. So they're kind of like tucked under the trees, or they're in a plant or something like that, maybe so that people don't like walk in and immediately see them, because that other area of the cemetery that is in the corner is almost hidden by the trees and the foliage around. And then the last big detail, of course, has to be the singing head sculptures, super iconic from the ride. The ones that I think they're actually towards the end of the ride that you go across before you turn and go into the mirrors. Those are located again towards the exit. I also thought it would be kind of funny, and I haven't done this yet, so please share your opinions on whether or not you like this, if I maybe added some music boxes, and not like the ones that you can go over and operate, but the ones that automatically play music around, but I like hide them so that they're not immediately visible. So when you come here, like spooky music is playing, creepy music, just any kind of music, considering that this is such a like lively musical part of the ride. I thought it would be kind of funny if you came here and you heard like a low lull of music playing somewhere. Oh, another detail actually that I wanted to mention, there is a band of ghosts that are playing like musical instruments, and I decided I was going to go ahead and add that as well. So that's tucked away in a different section. I basically quartered it off into like 4 sections that are each themed after a little bit something different, but each is like a shout out to the Haunted Mansion itself. And there we have a Haunted Mansion themed cemetery. A little bit of a quicker build today, most definitely. The next thing that you guys are going to be seeing is actually the Chernobog brand new house that's located again at the very top of Forgotten Hollow. It's going to take the place as the, what is that mansion called actually at the top? I am not familiar with Sims lore. Like, do not go to me for anything related to classic Sims townies and Sims lore, but I know that whoever lives there is definitely like, everybody knows, but it's just not me. I don't know. It's going there. It's going to be really cool. I am having some problems with The Sims 4 right now. It is unfortunately a new bug, and it won't allow me to save builds to the gallery. I don't know what's going on with that. That's going to be a huge issue if I can't figure out how to work around that. But that's also put a little bit of a delay in some of the things I've been doing. After the new stuff, I will put out the master renovation video, and I will be doing a very quick tour video of this world before we move into a couple of little things that are getting updated in Henford on Bagley. It will not be a full world reno in Head Forgotten Bagley by any means. I just have a couple of little things that I need to change and maybe a new build. You can look forward to all of that coming very, very soon. I hope you guys enjoyed the Haunted Mansion Cemetery. Let me know all of your thoughts about it in the comment section down below. If you'd like to support the Disney Save on Patreon, you can do so by clicking the link in my description box down below or the one at the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and I will talk to you all in the next one.